Probably the most infamous figure surrounding Synnibear 03's drama is not even Synnibear, the perpetrator herself. When you get right down to it, as egregious as Synnibear's actions were, I and many others simply would not really care to look into it if not for one particularly special individual. That being everyone's favorite clanker, Just the Robot. Jar's defense video of Synnibear 03 just might be my favorite video to watch ironically. Not only is it a masterclass in what not to do when trying to defend the controversial opinion, but Jar himself is just so tone-deaf and confidently wrong at what points he's trying to make that it tips into being comedy. There is a lot of background surrounding Jar, but I don't want to take too long to actually get into the actual video. What I'll say for now, however, is I remember watching one of Just the Robot's videos like years ago, and it wasn't even really for Jar, it was part of a collab with another creator, probably Shady Durags, but I honestly don't remember anything about it at all, so make of that what you will. However, from the little I understand about Just the Robot, he's somewhat of a vulture. Not in the sense of being able to keep the environment clean of dead bodies and carcasses. No, it's more along the lines of something just freshly was slaughtered and I'm going to swoop in to take my prize. I don't wish to throw stones from a glass house because let's be real here, I do just about the exact same thing. And a fair few of you watching this video have also acknowledged that. I also get compared to Just a Robot a fair bit, and I can see the resemblance. We both have similar patterns of our enunciation.
I promise I'm 18 button.
Just use the blot button. We're both autistic. And he once used a PNG of his black roommate to masquerade as a black man while I am actually black. We could be twins! But the main difference between us is that Just the Robot doesn't really try to think for himself, instead choosing to parrot the opinions of others. This netted him the reputation of being someone who makes his videos by committee. Namely by assessing how the audience is feeling and capitalizing on that. I know that's rich coming from me because that's literally what Beckett from Cope and Sieve says, but it's true. And his video defending Synnibear is no different. His arguments are largely derived from three different sources: Kumo, Shud Logic, and even Synnibear herself. As for what came from where, I'll do my best to educate you as the video proceeds. I can only hope you're as excited to revisit this video as I am.
I was going to make a video talking about a recent document that was released about me, but the situation has gotten much more serious as I realize the damage that I've caused.
Another person in the ArtCC has been outed as a bad person. Gee, that's surprisingly new. In other news, there's gonna be a sunrise tomorrow morning. That being said, this situation might not be as cut and dry as you once thought. Unlike everyone else who rushed out their video on Synni, I actually reached out to her, and she agreed to do an interview with me.
We haven't even gotten into the intro animation, and there's already a problem. Pray tell, what are you hoping to get out of reaching out to Synnibear when all the information you could ever need to condemn her already exists and is visible? It's extremely unlikely you're going to get anything of value out of talking to her. Sure, it is a good thing to get all of the facts before making any official statements on anything, but the people who are rushing out their videos on Synnibear already did. You can't do much better than the full Discord logs between Synni and her victim.
Just like with the Pyrocynical drama, the Spoctor drama from 2016, and the Hopeless Peaches drama, there was something about the Synnibear situation that didn't feel right.
Oh god, I forgot about this. Jar has a habit of haphazardly referencing previous drama videos he's made, trying to make connections between them and whatever he's currently talking about, which is why he brings up Pyrocynical, Hopeless Peaches, and Spoctor. So forgive me for not knowing anything about Hopeless Peaches or Spoctor, but I'm not nearly as interested in them as I am towards Synnibear, and the only reason I know Pyrocynical is because his controversy is directly addressed by Just a Robot in this video, so I feel obligated to at least have some understanding of what he was up to.
I'll give you two options. You can take the blue pill and just believe the mainstream opinion about Synni, or you can take the red pill, and I can show you just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Oh goody, the Matrix reference. This early on when you fail to prove anything, it just makes you come off as elitist. And if your goal is to sway public opinion, well, let's just say you're not doing yourself any favors. Strap in, y'all. This is gonna be bumpy.
Before I begin, I would like to make some disclaimers regarding this video. Number 1. One of the subjects involved in this video goes by a different name than they used to, due to identifying under a different name and gender. If you know the user by the name of Birdie within the animation meme community from years ago, a drama I actually made reference to in my last video, which I to this day do not know anything about, then you should know they now go by he, it pronouns, and they have changed their name to Jack. This is the ArtCC. Half the people in it are trans.
Honest question, what does Birdie matter? Because this drama hardly concerns Birdie at all. The focus, if anything, should be kept primarily on Synnibear and her victim. You want to have as little fluff as possible, especially in the very beginning of your video.
When talking about their drama, I will refer to it as Birdie, but for the rest of the video, I will call him Jack as that is what he prefers to be called. Second, please give what you can to help save my friend's family restaurant. A link to the GoFundMe will be down below. I know it doesn't seem like the time for it, but I promised my friend I would shout it out in every single video until we raise the money for it.
To this day, I think that fundraiser is still going. I last remember seeing it in Lord Crust's video covering Just a Robot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the friend's restaurant that Just a Robot is alluding to is actually his girlfriend. Which on its own isn't really very funny, but then you remember that said restaurant is being tied to a story about a groomer. And of all things to have your dying restaurant being associated with, this is probably not one of those things you'd want.
And number 3, some of the stuff you may hear me talk about in this video will be a bit troubling to some, but I am going to keep my wording simple and brief, and show evidence that will be highly censored.
Literally the very first thing you see in this video is a content warning. Why even have it there if you're going to say this here? The word of the day is redundant.
Now you might have heard of the Birdie drama, back when they were bashed by the ArtCC for seemingly no reason. After all of that drama, they became best friends with Synnibear 03, who I will just be referring to as Synni for the duration of this video. They moved in together around 10 months ago, but unfortunately their friendship didn't last. Last time I heard about two ArtCC people moving in together, it was Kai and Omnia, and yeah, we all know how that turned out. ArtCC people just don't move in with one another, it never turns out great.
I'm probably mistaken. I thought Birdie was being bashed for being a groomer. But if I'm right, then that just speaks to how little research that Just a Robot does. I find it impossible to believe that there is just no justification for Birdie being bashed. Also, who are Kai and Omnia? You're not the main character, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
As for how I first learned about Synnibear 03, I first discovered Synni through her video on Spocter. Other than that, I just saw her video on Lio and Peaches, along with the first few minutes of her video on Deadwing Dork.
Oh god, that Deadwing Dork thumbnail. Knowing the dynamic that Synnibear and Birdie had when they were living together, that hits different.
Ironically, Synni brought up that she was moving in with Jack at the very end of her Spocter video.
I'm moving out soon. My original plan was to move out in January, but things have changed. I'm going cross country to pick up my friend so that we can roommate together. They've been an online friend for a long time, and they've been dealing with a really unsafe living situation for a while now, so I want to go get him. My family has been really adamant about me not doing this though. They already hated the idea of me moving out so soon, but they hate my roommate even more.
God. Wow. In retrospect, Synni's parents were just entirely right. First off, Synnibear in her response has already made a point to say that she's not financially independent, which actively adds credence to the idea that she probably should not be moving out as soon as she chose to. In addition to also having to rely on Birdie's social security check in order to keep their lifestyle afloat. And secondly, hating Birdie is just correct. It's good to know at least someone's parents has some sense in this situation.
When I heard this, I thought nothing of it.
I understand they're worried for my safety, but the way they've gone about being worried has been really stressful. I need to go on this road trip, I need to help my friend, and I need to make my own decisions. I need to get out of this house.
Remember all of this stuff about Synni's parents not being okay with her moving in with Jack, because it will become important later.
It doesn't.
As they were living with one another, someone made a document accusing Synni of doing very bad things with minors. Jack called Synni out for this, it made a video, the video absolutely blew up, and tons of people also made videos on Synni. I, along with many other people, wouldn't have learned about this situation for a lot longer if Jack didn't make its video. There are two docs that compiled all the evidence of what Synni did. The first one has 111 pages.
It's 111 pages long! Kidding me! You're kidding me!
Sure, it's long, but it's mostly just screenshots. The most severe allegation in this document was that Synni was grooming a 14-year-old by sending them inappropriate pictures. Unfortunately, the doc is so long that most people didn't look at it in its entirety, and if they did, they didn't look at it very carefully.
Well, at least there's some silver lining to this being so long. I'm certain this means that Just a Robot surely read through the entire doc, right? Well, no. You see, as this video goes on, Just a Robot goes on this sort of moral crusade about how people were not taking the time to actually evaluate the evidence and see whether or not Synnibear was actually guilty. The problem being that he himself did not bother to properly look at the evidence himself, just to argue that Synnibear, a child groomer, is innocent. Ironic, but to be fair, iron is probably hard to detect when you're made of metal yourself.
Now some of you may be asking, how old was Synni when this all happened? Was she 16 when she was talking to the 14-year-old? Or 17? Nope, she was 20, about to turn 21. Like her birthday was right around the corner.
You can end the video right here, Just a Robot, after you admit that Synnibear was 20, almost 21, when she was talking to Enno. Not even 5 minutes in. Couple that with the full Discord logs, and Synni is just done. This controversy is so simple even I can understand it.
The 14-year-old also made their own doc, and it's, oh god, 188 pages long.
188 pages? No! 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 No!
But it's almost entirely just made up of screenshots, so it's not as long as it may seem at first.
Oh my god. Those screenshots that were scrolling on the screen, you can actually make out the very images that depict Synnibear grooming Enno. Oh, and fun fact, in a Chud Logic interview, Just a Robot admitted that he only skimmed the first doc, but didn't read Enno's doc at all. The 188 pages one, I mean. He would later chalk this up to the fact that he's dyslexic and as a result it's very hard for him to read. But A, if that's the case, there are tools that exist to read for you if you struggle to read with your own eyes. You know, things like screen readers. B, I've actually heard from other people who are dyslexic that Just a Robot's condition is not nearly as bad as it's making it out to be. And C, and most importantly, even if it is, Jar himself actually makes a comment on there being a video that goes over the full doc so that he wouldn't have to do it himself. He doesn't say it in this video though, but he does say it, just in the other draft of this video that he had created.
If you don't want to read the full thing, I will also be linking a video that goes over the full doc.
So he has no excuse for not being properly up to date on Synnibear's indecent misconduct. Especially when his YouTube channel is largely predicated on actually getting all of the facts and helping his viewers to achieve his understanding of the situation.
Now some of you might say that these screenshots are out of context, or maybe the messages are fake. After all, Discord is one of the easiest websites to use to fake messages. I mean, it's happened to me before, so it might have happened to Synni. But the thing is, those allegations aren't just allegations anymore because Synni admitted to it.
I've been an irresponsible content creator, and I've been acting inappropriately towards my fans. This alone is enough for me to realize I need to make sweeping changes to how I conduct myself and how I interact with my fans. But the most serious thing I've done is I've groomed a minor. I became friends with a 14-year-old after I made a mental note to myself to not become friends with minors again, and I overshared with them.
In case you're not up to speed, Enno is not Synnibear's first victim. They're not even her second victim. Clearly the mental note that Synnibear made for herself is illegible. Though what's more disappointing is the fact that she needed to make a mental note at all to not be friends with minors in the way that she was being friendly with them, especially with what she has to say shortly after this.
I shared graphic, explicit materials with them when I shouldn't have. I groomed this child, and I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I betrayed everyone who looked up to me. I betrayed my friends. I've done the worst possible thing I could have done, and I'm suffering for my choices.
On the one hand, I am happy she admitted to it so fast, but on the other hand, she groomed a minor!
Did you catch that? She admitted that she knew what she was doing was wrong. In previous videos on this channel, I've read up the possibility that Synnibear has potentially been desensitized to the idea of behaving indecently towards minors, which would still not be an excuse for behaving that way, but regardless of Synnibear being a man or a woman, an argument, albeit a weak one, could be made that she genuinely did not know any better. That is me trying to be as charitable as possible, but there are two problems. First off, by the time this video came out, she was like 20 or 21 years old, so it would be extremely difficult to prove that she did not know any better, since at her age, she really should have. Still, that's not impossible. However, then there's point number 2. Synnibear is not oblivious to the type of damage that these types of indecent conversations can have with minors. Anno herself has already acknowledged that Synnibear knows better. She has made videos on situations like the one that she had with Anno, and no doubt her mental note is in reference to people like Bug Spray, victims she had before Anno. So when Cindy says she knew what she was doing was wrong, I have no choice but to believe that she's telling the truth here. And that makes her position quite frankly unsalvageable. Speaking of Synnibear's roommate, I feel compelled to mention that in the first draft of the video that Just a Robot had commissioned, you know, the one that was more negative towards Synnibear, it was actually a lot more pro-Birdie as well, and was even going to donate to its GoFundMe, which in some respects may actually have made it worse in the video we're currently watching. But given how the narrative at the time was so in favor of Birdie, especially with the level of urgency it managed to convey, odds are at least at the time, it would have went over just fine. It just would have aged a lot worse as time went on.
I could go over the proof in the doc, but the drama seems like it's already over. Proof of what she did came out, her roommate talked about it, making the situation blow up, and she admitted to it. It's like that one clip from Rick and Morty.
And now, another quick mystery. I just want to know who could have done something like this. It's a travesty. I did. See this knife and all the blood on it? Here's my fingerprints. Guilty. I sentence you to life in prison.
Everybody, including Cinny, seems to be in agreement that she's a groomer, but I think a lot of you want me to be as transparent as possible and go over the 2 really big docs. I've seen a lot of false information get spread around about this situation, and I want you all to understand exactly what's going on, because let's be honest here, most people aren't going to go through 2 massive docs.
I said this before, I'll say it again. The people who make these documents really need to do a better job at actually editing them down. Or failing that, put the most damning information at the top of the doc so that people don't have to scroll through so much information to try and get what's really important. Maybe have multiple docs with one being more comprehensive than the other. What I'm trying to drive at is that if you want your voices to be heard, make it easier for people to be able to make out what you're trying to say. The people involved in the Shay controversy especially need to understand that.
The only one defending Cinny at all is Kumo. And let's be honest here, he's a guy who everybody hates, so if anything, he probably made the situation even worse for her. The guy is an absolute contrarian, and many people consider him to be a troll. Clearly, he's just doing this to stir up drama. But as I was working on my Cinny video, I kept on going back and changing a lot of things about it. And once I finished my video on Cinny and looked at all the evidence I had lined up, it just didn't feel like a good video to me. I got that same feeling I had during the Pyro drama, the Hopeless Peaches drama, and the Spoctor drama. For those of you who do not know what the Spoctor drama is, basically back in 2018, he was accused of inappropriately messaging minors as young as 13 years old. But he got out of them because he did those actions when he was 16 to 17. Cinny was 20, about to turn 21, so there's no way she's innocent, right?
I'll just come out and say I'm not really comfortable ruling on this subject at all. If I had to take a stance anywhere though, Spoctor, according to this account, was still a minor at the time, being only 17 or 16 years old. You may be old enough to drive a car, but you're not even close to being independent. And that's to say nothing of how much more your brain has to go to develop. Though to be as safe as possible, I wouldn't want the age gap to be anywhere beyond even 1 year when you're only 13. And at Spoctor's age, assuming he was 17, I'd probably be fine with it if it was a 15-year-old, but not a 13-year-old. That's way too freaking young. So you can imagine what I think, knowing that there's a 20, almost 21-year-old sharing what would be considered 18 plus content with a 14-year-old. And when you break it down like that, these are hardly, if at all, comparable scenarios.
Well, I told myself the same thing, but then I noticed she took down her apology video, and I decided to reach out to her because I just felt so uneasy. And after I interviewed her, which I will play at the end of this video, I realized that Cinny and all of you were lied to. I've gone against the mainstream art commentary community opinion lots of times. I did it in the Peaches drama, the Antunes drama, and the Toby drama. Granted, the last one didn't go so well for me, but the other two went pretty well. I know 100% that I'm going to get a lot of backlash for making this video, but someone with a sizable audience needs to say something.
Jar, if you're so concerned with backlash, then why even present the argument? If you feel strongly enough about something, it should not matter what other people think. You need to believe that what you have to say has value and stand your ground. Obviously, don't try to be offensive, but don't be scared of offending people. Though given the person you're defending, I think it's worth stating that it also takes courage to know when to quit. The irony is also not lost on me that after saying this, Jar would want to delete this video in less than 2 days. Just goes to show he's not brave at all, he's just foolish.
The first big red flag to me was how quickly Synni admitted to grooming. When it comes to groomers, they never do that. Cosmodor didn't do that, EDP didn't do that. In fact, there's not one single groomer that I can think of that has ever done that. The only person that I can think of who admitted to being a groomer before Synni was Spoctor, but he was innocent.
It begins!
This red flag makes no sense to me whatsoever. I have said before that yes, it is unusual for someone to confess their guilt if they're called out on something, which is funnily enough a point that Synnibear herself made in her response video. Makes me wonder where Just the Robot got it from. But more to his point, someone confessing their guilt does not at all mean that they're actually innocent. That logic is fundamentally backwards. And bringing up only 2 examples of people not confessing their guilt and ending up being groomers if not worse in Cosmodor and EDP is very bad logic. An opponent would only need to make one counterpoint to be able to completely debunk the argument you're making. Case in point, a Mario Kart Wii creator called Sword of Seals was outed for being a groomer years ago. Not only did he not fight back, but to my knowledge, he has not once ever tried to come back. That was an example off the top of my head. And I'm certain there are other examples you can pull from where someone confessed and they were in fact guilty. Additionally, I'll admit to not being familiar at all with Cosmodor, but I remember seeing on a Kristen Arc stream that Cosmodor actually did confess to being a groomer. I don't really care to look into his situation though, and that's because whether or not he did confess is entirely unnecessary. EDP, you could probably make a stronger argument, what with the Barack Obama AI and all that other jazz, but I think even he eventually confessed to what he did. But I do think I understand where Just the Robot is coming from all the same. However, I'd like to let him finish his point first.
If you've seen my Vincent Skullman video on my old channel, then you know that I've proven that ArtCC people are cartoonishly spineless. Just a little social pressure will make them admit to things that they haven't done. In court, people are allowed to rescind their guilty plea, and that is put into law because humans are, well, human. They can be pressured into saying that they're guilty even when they aren't. Tons of people have admitted to practicing witchcraft because they were pressured into it.
I can see the argument that Just the Robot is making here, and to be fair, I do agree that Synnibear made her video under duress. The reaction to her own exposure felt very performative, almost as if it was puppeted. Additionally, Synnibear herself admits that the reason that she made that video was because she didn't want her roommate to move out, since for whatever reason, Synni is just obsessed with Birdie. I don't quite know what she sees in it, but I guess the girl has got her priorities, so I'm not gonna question it as much as I want to. Then again, going by her Deadwing Dork thumbnail, maybe she just sees Birdie as the son that she never had. But this comparison is disingenuous. Even if you could prove that this legally could not be classified as grooming, it is impossible to fight the argument that Synnibear still engaged in indecent behavior towards Enno. Behavior that is unanimously condemned. Like, if you plead guilty and people find evidence that actively supports why you're confessing your guilt, the truth is already out there, you can't really get away from that. I feel like you just undid yourself with that clip you got from Rick and Morty.
Okay, Jaw, that may be true, but did you actually watch Jack's video?
Yes, and it barely had any evidence at all. It is mostly just Jack talking, and that's pretty much it.
Sock has expressed discomfort with Synni multiple times, and Synni hasn't made an effort to change anything. She made graphic rape comics, including Sock's characters, and sent them to people she barely knew, who then leaked them because she didn't fucking know them. Sock expressed discomfort again, and Synni doubled down and told Sock off because she can cope however she wants, I guess. I haven't looked at the screenshots. I've only heard, like, testimony of this, but it's disturbing.
I haven't looked at the screenshots. I've only heard, like, testimony of this, but...
For future reference, I did not put that edit there. Jar's editor did.
She has an obsession with Boy to this very day. Before I found out about all this, Cinny actually DM'd me last night and said, oh, boy's yelling at me, because I think she has like an imaginary version of him. I don't know. And I was like, why is he yelling at you? And she's like, I don't feel comfortable saying. And then I found out from someone else what she did, and she just wasn't gonna tell me.
The most I got from Birdie's video is that Synnibear isn't very smart, but that's besides the point. What does it matter what Birdie has to say on the subject? Its opinion is largely irrelevant. It specifically pointed its viewers in the direction of the description to check the doc there, so pointing out that there's no information worthwhile to find in Birdie's video is largely meaningless. What's the matter, Jar? I thought you were a Tin Man, not a Scarecrow.
Some of you may bring up that Jack and Cinny were best friends, and it would be in denial about what their friend did. The thing is, though, Jack is very, very autistic. Like, I can't be the only one who thinks it's weird that Cinny allegedly groomed a 14-year-old, and Jack somehow makes it about itself and gets $10,000 in donations. Like, what? How does that work? If that's the rule from here on out, Professor Dreadlock has been messaging minors inappropriately. Now give me $10,000, please.
He's not wrong. Birdie did end up making the situation all about itself. I don't know if I'd have attacked the fact that it's autistic. I mean, you're autistic too, aren't you, Jar? Just sounds like you're throwing stones from a glass house. In addition to just being entirely unnecessary to criticize Birdie, even though admittedly, it's pretty funny coming from him.
Even if you're moving out, you don't need $10,000 unless you live in California or New York or something. In fact, if you live in one of those two states, $10,000 will only cover your rent for a week. But why couldn't Jack just ask for, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 and then get a job? Well, that's because it doesn't work. Yep, Cinny was paying the overwhelming majority of the rent. Jack needed Cinny, but Cinny did not need Jack. Cinny is working a real job, she's making money, and she's paying rent. Jack, for the longest time, was on Social Security until he moved. So let me get this straight, we're paying taxes to it, and now we're giving $10,000 to it. It almost seems like Jack had everything to gain by throwing its friend under the bus.
I mentioned this in a previous video, but I honestly don't think $10,000 would last very long at all. But that's besides the point. Think of Jar what you will for this take, but the funny thing is that it's not even really exclusive to him. No, Jar actually got this take from another content creator by the name of Chud Logic. According to the timeline, Birdie's video came out, Chud would then go on to watch it. Just the robot saw Chud reacting to Birdie's video, assumed the public opinion was going to change on Synnibear because people were laughing at Birdie, and he included some of Chud's talking points in his video, trying to discredit Birdie. It really was a tailor-made argument meant to appeal to Chud. And knowing how Jar operates, I think that's a very safe assessment to make. Especially when you remember that in Jar's original draft of the video that he was going to make on Synnibear, he was going to donate to Birdie's GoFundMe, meaning he likewise would have bought into it.
But Jar, the document had all the proof. I mean, look how many pages it had. All that evidence must prove that Cinny's a groomer, right?
Well, actually no. There's not one shred of evidence that Cinny groomed anyone. Just testimony, one of which came from herself, ironically.
Jar, are you sure you want to make that your final answer? I can't speak for the document with only 111 pages because I have barely looked into it at all, but the 188-page document absolutely has evidence of Cinny being a groomer. Even ignoring that, the full logs existed before this video came out, so to claim there's not one shred of evidence that Cinny groomed anyone is just a blatantly false statement.
Now I want to make this 100% crystal clear. Cinny did 100% speak inappropriately around minors. But know who else did that? Pyro.
I'm sorry, did you just say around? The controversy that Synnibear is embroiled in is her speaking indecently towards minors. I get that later in this video, he actively tries to debate the idea that Synnibear is a groomer, which would mean making her interactions with Eno look as impersonal as possible. You know, trying to make Synnibear look more irresponsible rather than malicious. Which is a point you could debatably make when she was talking about her sexual fantasies with sex chatbots, as absolutely deranged as that would still make her look, and I feel dirty even having to say that out loud. But ultimately what I'm trying to drive at is that saying it's only around minors and not towards them is dishonest framing, and actively serves to downplay what Synnibear is guilty of.
Recently, to those who are unaware, I've been accused of grooming a 15-year-old boy when I was 19. That I'm some kind of predator and was aware of his age all along. This is categorically untrue and a complete lie.
Oh goody, Pyrocynical. So Just a Robot tries to draw the comparison between Pyrocynical was involved in regarding Ivory to Synnibear's situation with Enno. I have some opinions on Pyrocynical's situation, and oh boy, they're not good. I truly believe Pyro deserved a lot more criticism than he ended up getting with what he actually was doing. However, in Pyrocynical's defense, his situation, while still being bad, isn't quite as clear-cut as Synnibear with Enno, and that's largely due to the fact that we as observers don't have nearly as much information as far as what was actually discussed between the two as we do with Enno and Synni, a fact that Pyro himself takes full advantage of. At least, this was back in 2024 when Jar's video first came out. Ever since 2025, a lot more information was made available, and I'll bring it up as it becomes relevant.
But a few days ago, a poorly written Google Doc has surfaced claiming that I have lied in my response and I'm 100% guilty. I just want to be clear, I have never lied at any point. This document is disingenuous, manipulative, and it fails to include so much of my original statement. This document makes, insane assumptions based on limited and broken evidence. It's not hard to dismantle it, it's just annoying that I have to be the one to do it.
I think that Google Doc came from Turkey Tom. I remember hearing it was a very big misstep on his part to try making that doc, since it gave Pyrocynical a scapegoat to point to argue that he's being misrepresented. Couple that with the fact that Pyro is a massive YouTube channel while Turkey Tom, especially back then, is significantly smaller. It's easy to see how this situation failed to leave much of an impact on Pyro. Which is honestly a shame because I think Turkey Tom really has something here. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to read the doc because it no longer actually exists due to violating TOS. But it really speaks to the importance of having all of your ducks in a row if you're going to go after someone big. As far as how this relates to Synnibear's situation, however, the initial call-out doc on Synni is irrelevant. People back then when the drama was fresh have long since moved past that doc, so to focus so hard on it still is strawmanning.
These conversations never led to any nudes being exchanged. It was just purely fantasy garbage, something which Ivory himself confirms.
Did he ever ask you for nudes?
No.
No.
Speaking of strawmanning, yes, it's true that at least as far as we know, no nudes were ever exchanged between Synnibear and Enno. But the situation doesn't have to be that severity of bad to still be unacceptable. Synni still sent porn to a 14-year-old. And heck, you could use this to be critical of Pyrocynical too. Because depending on what he sent to Ivory, he would likewise also deserve to be raked over the coals. And if I'm here being critical towards Pyro, then how much more so do you think I should be of Synni, who's guilty of an even wider age gap, and has stronger evidence against her?
Several of our conversations were leaked online by Ivory. Here's one of the more, damning ones.
I'd love for my Sona to be licking at his fat, sweaty while rubbing his belly from behind, and then just having him gas all over my Sona's face. That'd be so nice. Or if mine was just underneath him, getting railed underneath his huge belly, and your Sona could be gassing non-stop as he f***s mine like... Huh? Well, to be honest, I'd pick you up, hug you while... Well, to be honest, I'd pick you up, hug you while rubbing you against my huge, sweaty moobs, then kiss your cheeks, telling you how much I loved you, and then kiss you on the lips and let out a hard, long belch into your mouth. Come on.
You know, I can see why he's playing it for laughs, but my god, he is a freaking weirdo.
I mean, yeah, we shared some fat furry art, we had some weird fantasy roleplay, but there was no sexual interest. There were no nudes exchanged, his name, his appearance, it wasn't important to me. He never once disclosed the fact that he was 15 at the time these exchanges commenced. He didn't include his age in his bio until he was 16, but I was not on Twitter between the 28th of December 2016 until the 29th of June 2017, as I was suspended. It would have been a hell of a lot less likely for me to see all but one of these tweets that's been used as evidence in this Google Doc. My Reddit post clearly shows that I was suspended from Twitter at the time that they were made, and that of course leaves the very last one, but like, what are the chances of you catching one specific tweet when you follow hundreds of people. I brought this up in my Reddit post as well, but it's been deliberately left out as some like shit attempt at manipulation.
So here's probably the biggest discrepancy between Pyro's situation and Synni's. If Pyro at the time did not know Ivory's age, that completely changes the dynamic of their conversations. It would still be grossly irresponsible that he wouldn't at least ask what Ivory's age was if they're gonna have those types of conversations. But at least it gives Pyro a case of plausible deniability, especially if after turning 16 these conversations ceased. Another thing in Pyro's defense, however, is just that, again, we don't know just how bad the conversations between him and Ivory really were. This was the consensus back in 2024, when information was more limited on the controversy in question. Admittedly, this never really made much sense as a defense for me. I don't actually have a Twitter account, much less have ever been suspended before, but from what I can make out, Pyro and Ivory's conversations were happening over Discord, not Twitter, so this feels like an attempt at misdirection. Even if they weren't, being suspended on Twitter doesn't disable your ability to read messages from people you know, a fact that Pyro himself confirms in a video he uploaded on the 1st of May 2017. So the plausible deniability Pyro was trying to construct for himself doesn't hold water. For full disclosure, I wasn't the one who put this all together. I saw a video from an individual known as Internet Adjacent, who compiled the new information against Pyrocynical in a video uploaded last August. Feel free to check it out later, I'll put it in the description of this video.
Wait a second there, Jaw! The Synni situation and the Pyro situation are completely different. I mean, after all, Pyro didn't know Ivory's age.
I think you need to see the next clip after this one.
When Ivory linked me his Twitter profile, the age in bio says 16. This is something I acknowledged in my Reddit post, but to be fair, I probably didn't elaborate enough on it. In retrospect, I never should have continued the furry stuff with him once I learnt of his age, even though at the time, I didn't see it as a problem.
You know, in the aforementioned video by Internet Adjacent, he actually shows some evidence of Ivory confirming being underage through needing a fake ID for certain activities, something Pyro directly responded to. But Pyro having to say in retrospect, in regards to the conversations he was having, is already an admission of guilt. It's really that simple. If you have to say in retrospect or in hindsight, then you've confirmed acknowledgement that what you did before was bad. Or failing that it's reasonable for people to look into what your situation was the way they did.
If it helps for context, because we're being so open here, I'm straight, IRL, like I have no interest in guys. This is just purely like a weird fantasy, and it does not carry over into the real world whatsoever.
The straight black man I am, I do not know what role sexuality would play in your culpability here. And that's to neither Pyro's benefit or chagrin, because I personally cannot conceive of a straight person having these types of gay role-playing sessions unless it was for a bit, like for a video. At least then you're being an actor, and a big part of acting is knowing how to properly lie to people. Also, this has more to do with Jar's video structure more than any arguments he's trying to make, but the extended clips of others' YouTube videos with your own text commentary plastered over them just strikes me as very lazy. Have some respect for your audio-only listeners.
Of someone who drew like fan art of my Fox character back in 2016. I then apparently replied to them like jokingly saying not thick enough and then asking for their age, and they said 15. So when people saw this, they instantly drew parallels to the grooming allegation. I asked them for a thick version and they drew this, which isn't even really that different from previous things they drew before even getting into contact with me. I didn't commission it. What was drawn wasn't pornographic. They'd drawn very similar stuff before, and there was no roleplay here, it was nothing.
And last I checked, we pretty much all forgave him.
Well, you can't blame Pyro for having degenerates in his audience. That may sum up pretty well though why Pyro was given so much grace. Being able to paint this situation as just a big joke, coupled with just how lax Pyro's fanbase was with this type of material, and the lack of any damning evidence that you could really use to condemn him, I'm starting to see now why this was not very detrimental to him. I don't know if I'd say that we all forgave Pyro for this though. After all, I was never really a viewer of Pyrocynical. I was more so a connoisseur of grade A under A myself. Plus, to my understanding, this controversy was actually a lot more divisive than just the robot is making it out to be, since a lot of people actually believe that Pyro got off way too lightly for what he did, myself included. So I'm not even really sure what was the point of bringing this up. But let's give Just a Robot the benefit of the doubt and say that it does fit into what he's trying to say about Synnibear. So what? Pyro's is his own thing, Synnibear's is hers. What does it matter if Pyrocynical got away with it for Synnibear's controversy? You know that sometimes bad people just get away with doing bad things, right? Pyro's controversy very well could be an instance of exactly that. It says nothing, however, to try and deny any culpability on Synnibear's part, especially when Cindy's situation is significantly more clear-cut as to why she's guilty. It's like you see someone driving through a red light and not getting busted by the police, and you use that example to try to defend someone who, again, ran a red light but did get caught. They still broke the law, they just didn't get away with it. This is just a very bad comparison to draw. And if this is the logic that Just a Robot is operating under, it does not bode well for what's coming up in this video.
Cinny is a coomer, a gooner, but not a groomer. Grooming requires intent and a desire to get with someone. Cinny did neither. If you want to get with a 14-year-old, you have to be a pedo.
This is just wrong. The grooming aspect has absolutely nothing to do with getting with the victim. Grooming at its core is about conditioning your victim to exhibit a certain type of behavior that they otherwise wouldn't be comfortable with. For that matter, being a groomer and being a pedophile can be mutually exclusive. You can be one without being the other. In fact, if you are one, you're likely not the other. If you want to get into the weeds with this, an adult that conditions or indoctrinates a minor so as to secure that minor as a partner when they're an adult would be an example of grooming, but it wouldn't make them a pedophile because they're no longer a child anymore. Morally dubious, but their actions are still legal, whereas pedophiles are much more infamous for coercion. Instead of manipulating you to bend to their will, they'll force their will onto you. At least that's how it's portrayed in real life. But just the act of engaging in indecent sexual activity with minors is definitively pedophilic. This is why I'm so comfortable calling Synnibear both a groomer and a pedophile. I'll grant that it's definitely possible that her previous victims were already screwed up prior to meeting her. I mean, Eno has self-admittedly been drawing porn ever since she was 11 years old. But that doesn't account for the fact that Synnibear, while fully knowing Eno's age, was actively teasing her over knowing that she was young. And the way their conversations actively escalated gives a prime vibe of grooming. But that's the easy part. What evidence am I looking at to assert that Synnibear is also a pedophile? Rudimentary. It's also been previously established, at least in a previous video on this channel, that Synnibear has a history of, quote-unquote, cooming with minors. Meaning she actively gets sexual gratification from having these types of conversations with minors like Eno. If being a pedophile means you want to have intercourse with children, what does it say then when you're engaging in this practice that's about as close as you can ever hope to get to having sex with a child without physically meeting up to have it with them? And this is to say nothing of her infamous, "Why are all the funny people children?" comment. I rest my case. So forgive me for not respecting the opposing perspective that Synnibear is somehow not a groomer and a pedophile at the same time.
Now Cinny makes a lot of Coomer art, so there must be evidence of her drawing Shota, Lolly, or Cub, right? I mean, the signs were there in public for years. Just take a look at her channel. There are tons of videos where she would make suggestive animations of a minor character from My Little Pony. By that I mean Scootaloo isn't a minor character from My Little Pony, but that she's a minor character. She's underage. That's the point I'm trying to make.
What is this logic? Granted, I don't know what Shota or Cub even is, don't tell me I don't want to know. But what does that matter when this woman is sending porn in a minor's DMs? The indecent material you draw should not have to follow under a certain classification to be evidence of you being guilty of being a groomer, or failing that, a complete freaking degenerate.
Okay, this is cut and dry, she's guilty! But the fact of the matter is, she made those animations when she was a minor herself. A lot of these inappropriate animations of Scootaloo are over 7 years old. Cinny just turned 21, so back then she would have been 14. Maybe this is just me, but I don't believe 14-year-olds who drew inappropriate pictures of characters around their age should be cancelled years later when they are an adult. If that's the case, a lot of you minors watching this video better go scrub your deviant arts.
Scrub, scrub, scrub till the water's brown.
What are you talking about? Okay, genuine question. Who at the time was talking about this? How does this relate to Eno? Especially nowadays, who even cares what Cindy was up to when she was only 14? I get that it's very possible that Synnibear was actually being cancelled for this type of behavior, but if the point of this video is to try and overturn the controversy that Synnibear is embroiled in, you may just want to focus on stuff that people actually care about. A lot of this to me just reads as irrelevant nonsense.
The problem with this is that this is not the art CC, it's the animation meme community. Stuff like this is absolutely normalized in this community. If you're gonna cancel Synni for this, then you better cancel everybody else in the animation meme community. There are plenty of animations that say 13 plus or 16 plus or whatever, and the characters in them are very scantily dressed and do inappropriate things. You can have a problem with this. Hell, you can demand that these videos are age restricted, but you can't just cancel Synni for this and give everybody else a free pass. Plus, a lot of this stuff is no more inappropriate than things I've seen in animes like Fairy Tail and Naruto. Never forget what you were like when you were a kid. You enjoyed Misty when she was in her bikini, you enjoyed Naruto when he did his sexy jutsu, and you enjoyed when Fairy Tail just did a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, what a bad argument. This, for me at least, is wide of the mark for several reasons. First off, growing up, I was never actually allowed to watch Pokemon. I've always had zero interest in watching Naruto, and have never even heard of Fairy Tail before Death Battle. And by then, I was an adult. 2. One of those shows is not like the other. Naruto and Fairy Tail are for 14-year-olds and up, which already puts them at odds with 13 plus content. Something already oxymoronic when on a website where the minimum age requirement to join is 13 anyways, and definitely counter to what's generally considered a child's age range. Meanwhile, Pokemon for many was designed to be made acceptable for children to watch, and there's nothing sexual or suggestive about seeing Misty, a 10-year-old girl, wearing appropriate swimwear. I know this is the same man who gets anxious about seeing teenage girls show up at pools in their bikinis, but most people are not going to think anything of that, because it's commonly understood to be a normal part of a common recreational activity. Ironically, you'd have a much stronger argument if you pointed to a show like Totally Spies, a show chock full of material that led to many children having awakenings, if you catch my drift. Myself included. But even then, the content is difficult to argue even being suggestive, let alone explicit. Third, you can't really in good faith say that it's the child's fault for being exposed to this type of material. The real party to blame is just the adult for not protecting them from that material, or worse, the adult for putting that material explicitly in front of the child. Now, to be fair, by that transitive property, Synnibear would be innocent, because you can't mandate who gets to watch your videos, especially when it's all too easy to get around YouTube's age verification. But the ball is still entirely within her court to avoid interacting with her fans on a deeper level. And that leads us to finally, fourth. Just because you were screwed up does not give you the right to screw someone else up.
So just so we're clear here, back when Synni was 13, 14, and 15, she made animations like this, and just about no one had a problem with a minor making animations like this on the internet. Hell, judging by the view counts these videos got, I would go as far as to say that people encouraged her to keep doing stuff like this. So if she grew up with people constantly encouraging her to make animations like the one she's made, then it stands to reason that she would do the same when she grew up.
I'll admit that's a good point. If you've been walking a certain way for this long, you're going to keep walking that way as you grow older. Still, that's only an explanation, not an excuse.
But Jaw, that's not the only allegation in the doc. There's plenty of other stuff as well.
I hear what you're saying, so let's look at that doc even more. Now granted, the old stuff she did wasn't that bad. Sure, making a 17-year-old uncomfortable when you're 19 isn't good, but it's not pedo stuff in my book. I'm one of those people who defended Call Me Carson, so I can't say she should be kicked off the internet for doing the same. If you would like to know the story between her and the 17-year-old minor, well basically she sent a bunch of inappropriate messages to the minor.
Hold up, is that bug spray? The age gap is only 2 years? Let's just focus on the fact that, according to Bug Spray, an attempt was had to have her and Synnibear move in together, which is all types of scary.
She sent a non-con comic to the minor who was 2 years younger than her. The comic included an F&F character by the name of Boy, who was graping Nightmare Sand supposedly for the punishment of molesting children. Lovely.
What? Oh my god.
Oh, and by the way, to make everything worse, the OC by the name of Boy was created by a minor.
Ooh, that's bad.
The minor called out Synni for this, and she apologized and made a promise that she would never ever do something like this again.
That's good.
Except to my understanding, Synni kept doing it. to the point where Sock.Clip actually had to block her to stop seeing it. I don't think the story that Just a Robot is trying to peddle is as straight as he wants it to be.
No, none of this stuff is wholesome Christian family fun, but it's not that bad. Tons of people have drawn inappropriate pictures of minors' OCs.
What is that thumbnail? Why is Jaded Animations here? Why is this even a question? Like, obviously you can't stop people over the internet from doing whatever they want to do, but if you have to ask the question of whether or not you should draw porn if someone doesn't want you to do it, you really need to reevaluate your priorities in life. I think I'm actually starting to sympathize with Sock.Clip. Also, it's not lost on me that the footage that Just a Robot has in the background of his video has Jaden's name as one of the characters. To this day, I have to wonder what he sees in her. Oh no, I'm sorry, her avatar. Don't get me wrong, Jaden isn't exactly ugly, but I'm not really seeing any features that would be necessarily attractive. I can appreciate a modest looking girl though.
It's bad, but it's less bad when Synni did it because she was only 2 years older than the minor. If people don't want you to put their OCs in not safe for work situations, you should respect their wishes. But if you draw your OC as a hot anime girl or a big buff man, you should expect people to draw them in not safe for work situations. Personally guys, just draw not safe for work of me.
So it's the victim's fault for drawing someone in a way that is alluring in a way that they never considered, even if the original intent was to not be sexual or sexualized. This reminds me of an episode of Everybody Hates Chris, where there was this teacher who was dressed up to look very proper and clean, and all of her male students were so focused on how she looked that they were actively failing her class when she was teaching math. And the father of the main character, Julius, actually tried to chastise her by telling her to put on some uglier clothes. But why is it the fault of the teacher for just dressing for success? I get a similar vibe from what Just a Robot is saying regarding Sock.Clip needing to just expect that people will act however they want regarding your intellectual property. Which isn't inaccurate, but I think they have the right to feel upset that they're not being respected in the way they wish to be. And telling them basically to just suck it up just feels yucky.
Plus, there was a video made defending Synni from these allegations. It got hundreds of thousands of views, and it was received extremely well. Sorry, but you can't just agree with a video that's debunking allegations, then change your mind on it because new allegations came out. This is bad, but it's a 2-year age gap. And most people only gave her a slap on the wrist for this because of Romeo and Juliet laws.
Protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
We dated for a little while. I was a sophomore and he was a senior. It's fine.
No, it's not fine. We've got a pre-existing juvenile foundational relationship. Statute 2705-3. What?
Don't Romeo and Juliet laws only matter if, say for example, you were 17 and you met a 15-year-old? Like, in my personal opinion, a 2-year age gap is nothing. I think getting hung up over that is absolutely ridiculous. And the thought of Synnibear and Bug Spray moving in together is a lot more dodgy in my opinion. What does Romeo and Juliet laws even freaking matter here? Separating a vulnerable individual from their family, entire miles apart from each other, to live with someone who you've literally only known through the internet is a terrible idea. And it is whack how I have not heard a single other person bring this up. No one but Bug Spray themselves.
Granted, a lot of people don't agree with Romeo and Juliet laws, especially when it involves a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. After all, a 19-year-old can vote, get drafted, and do a bunch of other stuff, but a 17-year-old is still in high school. What Synni did was bad, but it's not pedophilic, and she did receive backlash for it. Personally, the biggest problem I have is that she said she would never ever do this again, and she did.
In other words, Synnibear is an unreliable narrator. Which makes me really question why you want to interview her. You better watch your back, Jar. You can't be too trusting with this person.
However, people are also more forgiving about this stuff when it's over the internet. Me hitting on a 17-year-old in real life is different than me hitting on a 17-year-old over the internet. After all, I can see the 17-year-old in real life, but on the internet, I can't see what they look like. On the internet, I hear someone talking to me. In real life, I see a minor in front of me. Granted, I'm a lot older than Synni. If I'm talking to a 17-year-old, yeah, I'm gonna get a lot more crap for it. The example I'm giving only works if I'm 19 or 20.
You hitting on a 17-year-old in real life is not different from you hitting on a 17-year-old over the internet. The most you can claim is that over the internet, you can't physically assess that they look young just from looking at them. And that information would actively have to be volunteered by the minor in question so that you know what their age actually is. Which I can't see why that would make it more forgivable over the internet because that gives you an extra layer of plausible deniability. But no, there is no meaningful difference between a 17-year-old over the internet and in real life. at their core, they're still a 17-year-old person.
But the thing is, as far as I'm aware, Cinny wasn't hitting on this 17-year-old. She was just cooming with them. She would also post gore and say inappropriate things where minors as young as 14 were present. Sure, this isn't good, but it's nothing that would get you that much backlash.
I'm sorry, what? Oh god, there's a lot to unpack here. If Synnibear was cooming with bug spray, knowing full and well that they were 17 years old and she was 19 at the time, I made this point when I was talking about her 2026 apology video, but that's about as close as you can get to having sex with a child without being up to physically have it with them. I'd argue that makes her look worse, not better. It's like you're saying she didn't want to bother with the theatrics, she just wanted to get right down to business. Also, what's with this wishy-washy part where he's saying it wouldn't get you that much backlash? That's nasty, dude. You should at least find something worthwhile to say, okay, yeah, this is really bad, I can't defend her for this. It feels like literally every questionable, if not just downright indecent thing that Synnibear is being criticized for is perfectly acceptable to you. You gotta have at least some standards here.
Personally speaking, I went on Live Leak a lot as a kid, and I saw some very gory stuff. Also, in the animation meme community, gore and bloodshed is just common. So once again, your hatred shouldn't be placed on Cinny, but the entire animation meme community as a whole.
Oh, this is bad. As I've said before, the problem is not the fact that the child is coming into contact with this material. It's still really bad. But the actual conflict of interest is the idea that an adult is putting that kind of material in front of the child. Jar is actively putting the onus on the wrong party here. You going on Live Leak and doing whatever you want there is undoubtedly awful, but that says a lot more about your parents not paying attention to you than you being ready for that type of material. And yeah, you would be entirely within your right to be worried about what the children are exposed to. If I was a father, I'd be freaking horrified of having a child exposed to the type of material, especially if it's over the internet where it's largely unregulated. Synnibear, by your own admission, putting this material in a place where minors can see it is downright vile, as it makes her directly culpable if anything comes from it. Especially since while you can't really control who can see what on your YouTube channel, Discord servers are significantly more intimate, and you have much more control over what can be seen and by who there. There's a reason, after all, as to why Discord is often involved in so many scandals.
Like the fact that people are freaking out going, oh, think of the children, just makes me laugh so hard. If you guys are canceling Cinny for this, then why isn't Jack getting any hate? Look at the end of its video on Cinny. His avatar along with her avatar are stripping while being on poles, and this video wasn't age restricted. Oh, so many minors were exposed to this.
How do you hit it with a straight face, you absolute donut? Just because minors are often being exposed at younger and younger ages to indecent material does not mean that it's suddenly less bad when a minor is being exposed to said indecent material. Your standards are set way too freaking low and it shows.
But again, at the very worst, this is her being irresponsible, not grooming. Most of the stuff in the doc doesn't really show her doing that much bad stuff at the start. I don't think having your OC in a suggestive pose where minors can see it is that big of a deal. If it was, then the doc maker would also be at fault. Also, anyone who made a video about this situation, as they were linking the doc showing images of her OC in sexy outfits, would also be at fault. Guys, you can't call something then put it in a video without age restricting it!
What? That's not the same thing, though. You're conflating the practice of broadly having the material there to criticize it and talk about why it's bad, with just casually sharing it within your inner circle. Like, the act of grooming isn't just merely having the material there where a minor can see it. If it was, then you'd have shot your own argument in the foot when you were showing all the tags on Synnibear's videos on her YouTube channel. It's not about the actual material being shown, it's the intent behind why you're showing it that's important.
Sure, the doc does censor out a few things, but it doesn't look like anything that bad was blocked out. Like this image was gore art, not her being topless, or at least that's what I've been told. Yes, her avatar is in underwear, but they're not fully naked.
Okay, 16 plus or not, I don't think meeting the age requirement necessarily means that a 16-year-old is comfortable with seeing gore. Heck, I'm 29, and I prefer whatever's in your body to stay there and out of my line of sight. And I'm not even squeamish. It's just common decency. But more to the point that you're making, Jar, That image was posted in Synnibear's server with a trigger warning that it was not safe for work. That would heavily insinuate that it's not really for minors to see at all. And your defense that she was not naked in that image is entirely meaningless as a result. Worse yet, I faintly remember hearing that that image was not even posted in a not safe for work chat, from your own editor no less, going off the on-screen text, when Discord has specific measures in place to keep minors and porn separate from each other. The idea that Synni thought it'd be acceptable with just a trigger warning and a spoiler tag is asinine.
But then you have things that are a little bit worse, like her saying to a 13-year-old that she's looking for a not safe for work chatbot to talk to because she's horny. Maybe this is just me, but I don't think you need to be telling 15, 14, and 13-year-olds that you're horny.
What do you mean it's just you? No, Jar, I agree with that. That's disgusting. That's a take that's so tepid you could turn it Celsius and it still wouldn't boil.
I skimmed over the doc because most of the stuff I saw in it was small potatoes compared to the accusation I heard about her grooming a 14-year-old. Then, when I finally got to the end of the shorter doc, I found out that the bigger and longer doc was the one about the grooming. Now, I want to make this clear. I do not believe Synni is a pedo. She more than likely would have done this with anyone regardless of age. The 14-year-old who made the doc even thinks that this is the case.
She more than likely would have done this with anyone regardless of age. Jar, that's precisely the problem. If she would have done this with anyone else, she would have done it with an adult. Not a 14-year-old girl, you freaking donut. Like, Jar, do you not know why people are pissed off at Synnibear right now? Because this reads as if you haven't even found the freaking starting line to this case.
She was being irresponsible by talking to the 14-year-old this way, but I don't think she was doing it to get with the 14-year-old. Also, I'm gonna be real here, the idea that people are saying Synni is a groomer but not a pedo is absolutely silly.
How would that be silly, pray tell? Again, those terms can be mutually exclusive. I guess let's hear him out, though I feel like if I wasn't making this video, I'd be at my breaking point right now. This is absolutely asinine.
I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want this pattern to repeat itself. I want to be better. Nothing I do will ever make this right. But I want to make sure it never happens again.
This is wildly irresponsible, it's an optics nightmare, and I don't know why she did this, especially when she made the promise that she wouldn't do this again.
Synni has way worse stuff going for her than optics right now, if we're being real. Like, yeah, it looks putrid, but focusing on optics almost feels like it's downplaying the severity of what Synnibear did. This ain't like Donald Trump weaponizing memes to become the president of the United States. Focusing on trivial matters like how you eat a burger or pizza. This is a 20, almost 21-year-old woman at the time, sharing indecent material with a 14-year-old. You can afford to be harsher here, just the robot.
However, when you consider the fact that neither I nor the 14-year-old believe that Synni is a pedo, then you have to ask yourself, how is this grooming? If you're not trying to get with someone, you're not grooming them. If you want to hate on Synni for this, that's fine, but she's not a pedo.
I've also already stated earlier that grooming is not about trying to get with someone, it's about conditioning to exhibit a certain type of behavior. So Jar, if you don't even know the definition of the word grooming yourself, then how can you in good faith argue what is actually grooming? You're in no position to tell anyone that they're wrong about what that word actually means. And it's unproductive trying to argue the toss about what the definition of the word even is anyway. Just call it for what it is if you want to get that pedantic. Screw whatever word you want to use to classify it, just tell it how it is.
Now I know what some of you are gonna say.
Well, we're not saying she groomed a 14-year-old to get with them. She just groomed a 14-year-old to be more comfortable with conversations like this so she could coom.
Don't get me wrong, I thought that at first, but it turns out that the minor was the one being inappropriate first.
Nigga, what?
And she kept on pestering Synni to talk about stuff like this. It's also important to note that this minor was a fan of Synni's content. Content that includes Scootaloo being in very suggestive outfits, which Synni also made when she was 14.
Jar, by making this point, you have officially signed your own death warrant. This is territory you don't even want to come close to coming to. Acting as if Enno is in any way, shape, or form culpable for how they were groomed. It does not matter that Enno was being inappropriate first. She's only 14, you weedling. Hell, even if she was pestering, what's stopping Synnibear from just clicking the freaking block button? There is no excuse for how Cindy conducted herself. You should not try to find excuses for how she conducted herself. And trying to find excuses for how she conducted herself makes you look like a freaking pedophile. And I get what he's trying to say. He's trying to argue that Cindy herself did not initiate the conversations with Eno, in addition to how Eno being sexual first means she didn't have to be groomed into it, because she was already exhibiting those types of behaviors, which is a fine defense, but not in the context of knowing that Synnibear herself is an adult. The obvious counterpoint that you have to acknowledge, or you just have absolutely no ground here, is that it's entirely Cindy's responsibility still to not engage. And to not acknowledge that is at best victim blaming, and at worst is actively performing pedophile apologia. This is indefensible. How do you make this argument and not remember that when you are a teenager, and your hormones are just going into overdrive as your body tries to figure itself out, that naturally, you're gonna make a lot of impulsive and stupid decisions, like what Eno did. When you likewise knew that by all accounts, Synnibear absolutely should have known better. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because Just a Robot knows this, and he shows that he knows it just a few seconds later.
Yes, Cindy should not have engaged with this minor. She was the adult in this situation, and what she did was incredibly irresponsible. It also makes her look really sus.
So, you know the onus is entirely on Synnibear, and you're still trying to downplay what she did. You know, it's not hard to find a solution for this type of crap, right? Plus, even then he's downplaying it. This is more than sus, you baka. For that matter, it's more than irresponsible too. It's definitively callous and quite frankly predatory. Honestly, I have more to say, but we all know just how bad of a statement this was from Jar. Heck, if his June the King interview is anything to go by, he's also remorseful for this brain-dead take.
And she kept on pestering Cindy to talk about stuff like this.
That was so fucking stupid. Oh, the minor made it sexual first. I don't know why I fucking said that. That was so victim blamey, and I regret saying that. That was the dumbest shit I ever said.
And good for him. That being said, I do know why Just a Robot did say what he did. And it all ties back to the fact that Jar is actively putting the onus on the wrong party. It's a byproduct of trying to claim that Synnibear is merely irresponsible, and actively trying to shield her from the criticism she rightfully deserves. Just neglecting the fact that if Synnibear doesn't know better by your own logic, then the minor definitely doesn't know better. And one definitely deserves your compassion more than the other.
But then again, Pyro, when he was an adult, sent a lot of inflation stuff to a minor. He got backlash for what he did, but he did beat the grooming allegations. No, I do not know why she couldn't talk to an adult about this kind of stuff. She brought up that she talked to this 14-year-old because she was as open about not safe for work stuff as she was. And yeah, of course she was. She just started puberty. Yes, Cindy knew the minor's age. She asked early in the convo. Sure, she could have forgotten this person's age. I talked to a lot of people myself, and it's hard to keep track of stuff like this sometimes. But she acknowledged that this person was young a few more times.
How do you forget someone's age? So is there a possibility you've had indecent interactions with minors yourself now? For that matter, why would you even say that? It's over for Cindy. You can't help her out of this mess. All this is doing is making you look bad, Jar.
Then they started to talk about, not safe for work stuff. But none of the not safe for work topics they went over were nearly half as bad as some people made them out to be. Like, some of this quote-unquote not safe for work stuff includes lyrics from the song, "I like big butts and I cannot lie." I heard that in the Shark Tale movie.
I like square butts and I cannot lie.
Hey boss, big butts.
Remember when I was talking about anime like Pokemon and how it actually had to be made more approachable for children specifically? Yeah, that's relevant here too. The lyrics, "I like big butts and I cannot lie," would be inappropriate for children, yes, but it was never a point of focus in the world of Shark Tale. It came up once and then never again, so that it could be forgotten as soon as it came up, you know, as typical of one-off jokes. You're trying to compare that with this instance of a groomer actively telling a 14-year-old what sexually turns her on. The context is entirely different, and that's what makes this bad. Especially since, remember, Shark Tale was designed for parents to watch with their kids. Cindy was telling Eno what she did tell Eno in confidence, meaning that it would only be between those two. Like, come on, man. She even asked Eno not to tell the public that she's depraved. in the very screenshot you showed to make your stupid point.
But what about the inappropriate pictures, like her sitting on a pile of sand corpses while hugging Boy? Is hugging porn now or something? There's also pictures of her and Boy and...
I can't even let it finish. How do you look at that and only point out the fact that Boy and Cindy are in bunny outfits, while A, not paying any attention to the fact that this is quite literally BDSM art, like straight up bondage material, which is decidedly indecent, and B, exactly what bunnies themselves are actually indicative of. For those of you who don't know, bunnies and rabbits are a symbol of fertility, as in your ability to procreate, intercourse, multiplication tables. You get the idea. Just look at these two.
Bunny outfits, woo, so scandalous. None of this stuff is actually hardcore corn, it's just softcore corn.
It's only softcore porn. How was that any better? It's still porn. What does it matter that it's softcore? How do you say this with a straight face?
For those of you who do not know what softcore corn is, think of it like the sexy jutsu from Naruto. Sure, it's a bit risque, but under the law it would not be considered hardcore corn.
Oh god, that's just stupid. I can't even laugh at that. See, from how I understand it, the most that teens can really be exposed to is content that's suggestive, but nothing that really shows anything especially, like, risque. I think the reason that Naruto's sexy jutsu works is because even though that is clearly a naked woman, nothing explicit is actually being shown. Which is an argument I could see, but not in the context of this being shown privately to a minor. Especially when you know full on well that it arouses you to do it. But even then, that's an argument I can only see if the content is suggestive. But that's not what Jar said. He called it softcore porn. Now I'm not here to tell you whether or not Synnibear actually drew softcore porn or just suggestive material. Mostly because it's really not my place to do so. And that's honestly to my benefit, because I'm not at all educated in this field. It would just be a case of the blind leading the blind. But none of that really matters for what Jar is trying to say. Regardless of whether or not Synnibear is actually sending softcore porn to a minor or not, why are you defending that? Stuff like that has absolutely no business being around the 14-year-old.
This kept on escalating until she sent the same not safe for work essaying comic to this minor, and requested this minor to draw even more corn of the character of Boy and Nightmare Sans. From the censoring job, it looks like a few parts of this comic would have been legally classified as hardcore corn. The absolute worst thing Cinny sent was this picture of Boy fingering her avatar.
I like how you brought up this point about how, oh, well, the porn was definitely sent to a minor, but it wasn't hardcore porn. Just to later on show, not even a whole minute later, that, okay, but no, she did send some porn to this minor that was indeed hardcore. Then what was the point of even trying to downplay what was shown previous?
However, it should be noted that the doc maker was not the one who censored this out. It was actually Cinny herself. When I first saw this, I thought, yeah, Cinny's guilty. But when I found out that she censored the worst parts of this comic herself, it made her look far less guilty than I was previously led to believe.
What? What? But she still sent porn to a minor. Censored or not, she sent porn to them. Actually, wait. You said that she censored the porn herself. Surely that would mean then that Cindy knew that what she was doing was wrong. Wouldn't that just mean then that she thought she could get around it by just censoring the worst parts? You still have enough information to be able to make out what's actually happening despite the censorship. Especially when you do a job that freaking pitiful. No, that doesn't make her look less guilty. If anything, that makes her look more guilty. It's like setting a hanging body on fire. It's already dead. That doesn't work, Jar.
I agree that what Synni did was wrong. I agree she was being irresponsible. But I do not think that Synni is a groomer, a pedo, a child predator, or anything like that. After going through both of these massive documents in their entirety, I realized that they're just full of nothing. Oh no, Sunny drew a picture of her character in a sexy outfit. Oh no, Sunny said I like big butts, I cannot let you a minor. If the doc maker had to stretch so much, so many times to make such bad points to paint Sunny as a predator, then it stands to reason that it's not a good doc. They clearly didn't know what they were talking about, and they were just grabbing any piece of evidence they could to paint Synni as a groomer. The fact that Jack actually looked at this doc and came to the conclusion that Synni was a groomer is absolutely insane.
How could you be so sure if by your own admission you skimmed over the first doc against Synnibear? And your arguments for why the material in question isn't that bad suck. Even if you were right, you're cherry-picking the least egregious stuff you could find. And it's abundantly clear that your arguments are being made in bad faith. This dude was entirely unprepared for this situation, wasn't he?
After that happened, I believe that Jack convinced Synni that she actually groomed someone. Then Synni, feeling bad about it without actually looking at the document, admitted to the allegations. And nothing Synni did was as bad as what Pyro did. So please tell me why he's getting a free pass and she's not.
Well, let's look at it this way. It is true that Synnibear's admission of guilt was under duress. I will agree with that. However, the information that came out about Synnibear that was after her apology is still legitimate, and reasonably has been used to condemn Synnibear. Now, as for why Pyro Cynical got a free pass, it really just boils down to the fact that back in the day, there wasn't as much damning information against Pyro. And what little information actually did exist back in the day, Pyro was able to manipulate and make it into a big joke. It has nothing to really do with the action that Pyro Cynical is guilty of, because if we're being real here, what he did with Ivory was bad. It's how he handled the controversy after the fact that matters. And that's in addition to his misdirection tactics, like the illusion of plausible deniability. Even if I'm wrong, or failing that, what Pyro did is worse than what Synni did. It wouldn't change the fact that Synnibear still deserves the criticism she's getting.
Okay, yes, most of the evidence we've seen from Pyro's video shows that he didn't actually know the age of the 15-year-old. Synni, on the other hand, did, which makes her more guilty than Pyro. But the stuff she sent Enna wasn't as bad as what Pyro sent to Ivory. Like, it's not even close. Also, Pyro did continue talking to the minor when they turned 16. Now, 16 is the legal age of consent in the UK, so it's really up to you to decide which one was worse.
Age of consent? Jar, this is over the internet. What does age of consent matter? Even if it did, how can you honestly argue that severity matters when it still remains true that Synni sent porn to a minor? To say nothing of the fact that Pyro himself believes he should not have continued talking to Ivory after learning he was 16 years old, which according to you, in the UK, is the legal age of consent. Clearly it didn't matter to him, so why does it matter to you? And for that matter, how could you honestly argue that what Synni did wasn't as bad as what Pyro did? Pyro has some cringy role-playing sessions with a 15-year-old. Synni, on the other hand, sent rape porn to a 14-year-old. Is your scale broken?
I'm really sorry, but
I'm going to kill myself and it's your fault!
Does someone have a gun pointed to his head or something? You could have stopped at any time.
Did Synni really say she was going to kill Jack? Well, yes, but there's some much needed context that you are missing. First of all, it's sad that people are flipping out over this and taking it so seriously. People have said they're going to kill me on Xbox Live lots of times, and I've done the same. Me and my roommate jokingly say we are going to kill one another all the time. I could tell super early on that the screenshots Jack posted to its Twitter were taken out of context instantly. Here's the context for the first screenshot.
Okay, so this is at the time when Jack is recording the video, right? What the hell? I love Jack so much. What happened? Right now, I fucking hate him. I hope he dies. He's framing me as a sex saying I assaulted him by touching his ass and boobs, but I would always ask if it was okay that I did that. And he always said yes. There were times when I poked him in places he didn't like, but I didn't realize it bothered him that much. I thought it was just playful. I don't know.
Oh no, she said she would kill Jack because it was accusing her of SAing, because it rescinded its consent, which is something you can't do. Kind of seems weird that Jack rescinded his consent at the absolute perfect time. Sorry, but if you give me or anyone consent, you can't just take it away months later. You can give your consent when something is happening or about to happen, but not months after the fact. I can't believe I have to explain this, but apparently I did.
Wait, didn't Cindy only ask after she already committed the act against Birdie? Granted, I doubt she'd do it repeatedly if Birdie told her not to do it at least once before, but according to Cindy's own account, she has a tendency to act first, ask questions later. I don't doubt though that Birdie's acting maliciously, which it would have every reason to do considering right now it's trying to maximize profit off of the Cindy situation. But given the context surrounding why it wanted to leave Synnibear's place, well, let's just say it's a very bold move to try and act as if you knew all along that Birdie really was in no real danger. I wouldn't be too surprised actually if this was a talking point from Kumo. I can't say for a fact, but that's just my hunch speaking.
Also, me and my roommate touch one another's asses all the time. It's a form of bonding with guys.
Why would you volunteer that information?
If Professor Dreadlock decided to take away his consent months after the fact and painted me as a groomer, I would put him 6 feet under.
I have to also admit, it could be because I'm hella sheltered, it could also just because I'm actually straight, but I'm not convinced that men touching each other's butts just at random, I guess, while they're living together is anything but gay. And I really hope I'm not alone in thinking that. I don't even think that Jar is wrong about the idea of retracting your consent months later being a scummy thing to do, not to mention just being entirely dishonest, but y'all already know my thoughts on Birdie. At least the thoughts I'm allowing you to hear. Call me mad at the internet all you want, I'm already wearing my hat. Sue me.
Also before this, Cindy was going over the stuff of her roommate painting her as a groomer. The second screenshot, the one about the gun, was sent after Jack moved out of the house.
Jack made a Twitter thread saying he has more info on me, is making a second video on me. He said he was talking to my friends and coworkers all day and is now staying with my coworkers, I think, but I don't know which ones. He said he's stealing my friends, and he said, live and suffer, Pedo Bear 03. After I saw Jack's Twitter thread, I had to leave work early. I bought a knife, pepper spray, and a crowbar to protect myself. I'm thinking about buying a gun too.
Interrupting just to say that in case you don't know, this is Romantic Goblin, someone who like Kumo was part of the Synnibear defense force while that was a thing. I have very little else to add, just know that she's largely unremarkable. Maybe if ever I decide to cover the call that Kumo had with Synnibear and Romantic Goblins in the background, she'll have more focus, but she's nothing more than a footnote right now.
I screamed at Izzy over the phone when she was trying to comfort me, but I was convinced someone was in my apartment and they were going to kill me as soon as I entered the place. I parked in a neighborhood 30 minutes away from 30 minutes away from where I live, and Izzy went to my apartment to check all the rooms with Jade. I thought someone was there and would kill her, thinking she was me, and I was so scared to try calling her again. Everything was cleared, though. I came home and checked all my rooms for myself, my pepper spray in hand. I broke down crying once I saw Stupid. Stupid is the name of the cat, and I slept in my room. I do not blame Cinny for wanting to buy a gun to defend herself when all the internet is, like, wanting her dead, and, like, she's being actively doxxed and people are advocating to kill her.
This was during a time Cindy was getting death threats, and also dealing with people calling her boss, showing that they know where she works, therefore they probably know where she lives. She just brought up that she was getting a gun to defend herself, and that's it. Sorry, but how did you guys fall for this? The entire internet wanted someone dead, and they wanted to defend themselves, but somehow this negatively affects a person who got over $10,000? Let me just make this clear. Jack gets $10K, Cindy gets death threats. She wants to get a gun to defend herself, and then Jack somehow twisted this into a death threat? What?
I know it's unproductive to be legitimately mad at what I'm listening to, especially when the bullying victim is a freaking pedophile, but when it's Birdie, let's just say it makes for good self-restraint practice. I find Cindy to be fun to talk about, but Birdie is draining at best and the source for my explosive temper at worst. Like, I hate the little run. But even then, it's important to acknowledge that there's a big difference between Cindy saying that she wants to kill Birdie, and Jar joking about how he wants to kill his roommate and people he plays with on Xbox Live. And they can all be summed up in only one word: tension. Jar and Dreadlock, in the present moments where they're telling each other they want to kill each other, both have a mutual understanding that there's no real immediate danger between the two of them. Whereas Synnibear is under fire both from the internet and in real life from people trying to get her information doxed, and are actively advocating to take her life. In a situation that stressful, I think it's very easy to understand how someone could act irrationally. And naturally, you have to treat situations like that with extreme caution. So at least at the time, I can understand why people were so paranoid for Birdie's safety. Really, the main problem here is that while Just a Robot is considering how Synnibear may be feeling at this point in time, he's not really thinking about how that would look to everyone else. Which, while I wouldn't really blame Synnibear for not being able to see how that would look for other people, since it's really hard to look objectively when you're actively caught in the situation yourself, Jar is an outside observer. He has much less of an excuse to not understand how others could see it.
By the way, I just realized this. Jack thought Cinny was a threat to children, so why didn't they call the cops? If I thought Dread was a threat to kids, you can bet your shiny metal ass I would call 911. I guess asking for money was more important than protecting children.
Okay, to Birdie's credit, I do recall faintly seeing a tweet from it saying that it did call the police on Synnibear following what actually happened. Apparently they also donated some of their money to Enno. I don't know for sure, and honestly, I could not care less.
I am a registered sex offender. I stuck my dick into a blender.
Much like Hopeless Peaches, Cinny rushed her response to everything, and it was not a good response at all. It did change a few minds, but for the most part, it increased the backlash she got. This response would have worked if she made it without apologizing beforehand, and before Jack made its video. But at this point, the mob is too riled up to listen to her.
The scary thing is that Just a Robot is probably right, which is alarming when you consider some of the things that Synnibear outright confessed to, in addition to just how manipulative it came out by acting as if you have to have Synnibear's definition of grooming to be able to call her a groomer. Or who knows, maybe Just a Robot is just dead wrong here. After all, even if she didn't apologize first, there's definitely some dirt to dig up on her. Especially if Enno's doc still ended up being made. But I digress.
She needed to treat this like how Pyro treated his video, or how Peaches handled her second video, but she made it as if it was just another video, and that's not a good thing. When you hear the call with me and her, you will see that she did not take my advice on how to go about this.
Why are you giving her advice on how to go about this? What loyalty do you have to Synnibear that you would try to help her? Why? What? Why?
She thought she didn't have to go over the doc because other people didn't go over it. But the thing is, this is the internet, not a court of law. On the internet, it's guilty until proven innocent. Also, monetizing the video and uploading it at 5 AM was not a smart move. That being said, the amount of people commenting that they will not watch the video is dumb. If you are too scared to watch it, then you don't fully believe in what you are saying.
Talk about me and the victims. My thing and the victims.
One thing that really shocked me about this whole drama is the amount of people treating this like it's Cinny versus Jack, but they seem to forget about Enno. I think they are left out because they aren't a public figure, so most people just don't care about them. Let's be honest here, Jack made the video about itself, not the minor. The minor got nothing, and Jack got over $10,000. People are saying poor Jack a lot more than poor Enno.
Base take, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I just wish that Birdie wasn't so pervasive in this video too.
Guys, Jack is a person with autism and BPD, and they grew up getting bashed by the entire internet, which more than likely had an effect on its development. Oh, and also they go by it pronouns, which is not a normal thing, even by trans standards. I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that it's best not to take it at its word and give it over $10,000 in 3 days.
I agree with it pronouns being abnormal to use, but I'll take what I can get in regards to not treating Birdie like a human being. You're still free to use he/him pronouns for it, though. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Synnibear actually called it an act of bigotry to refer to Birdie with they/them, which I'm not touching that with even a 10-foot pole. This stuff is confusing.
By the way, I'm going off topic for this, but if anyone is going to try to make the allegation that I'm simping for Synni, I'm not the one giving people $10,000. Giving money to people is closer to simp behavior than not giving them any money at all.
You may not be simping for Synni in the monetary sense, but you're white knighting really freaking hard for her. The truth of the matter is that Jar actually does have ulterior motives. Knowing the size of Synnibear's YouTube channel, he was hoping that if he could successfully defend her from this controversy, then he would essentially be owed a favor from Synni. As with a follower base that big, he thinks she would make for a very powerful ally. However, for that to work, you need to have a good position and a strong argument. And Jar had neither. So instead of gaining an ally, he lost his comparatively good standing with the rest of the YouTube creator landscape, his viewer momentum, tens of thousands of subscribers, and a lot of friends like Lyle Convoy. I wouldn't think it worth it, but that's what Jar decided to do. That's the hill he chose to die on. And boy, what a hill it is.
I recall people saying poor creepshow art during the Peaches drama. That drama involved a woman with black and orange hair getting thousands of dollars for going after a blonde girl for things that were mostly false, but a few things were true. But the things that were true were blown way out of proportion. And now the same thing is happening again, almost the exact same way. Talk about deja vu. I can't believe I'm having to do the same thing I did a few years ago. One of the people I defended Peaches from was Camilla, someone who was obsessed with Undertale, and Synni is also obsessed with Undertale. Am I in a time loop?
I have no idea what any of that was. I just want to leave you hanging for too long.
After looking over everything in more depth than 99% of people talking about this, I can safely say that this drama was blown up to a level that it had no business getting to. I love how people would try to debunk me on Twitter by sending me the doc they didn't read. I think the irony was lost on them. The commentary community's coverage of this entire drama was absolutely gross.
Wow, that's ironic considering he never read the doc himself. Imagine the alternate universe where this video was actually received well, and just how much damage it would do to discourse as a whole if it was.
You guys really need to stop spreading what is currently the popular opinion without looking into things deeper. Face the facts, Synni already quote-unquote admitted to it. You weren't making videos on her to spread the word around, you were just doing it to get a quick buck. You weren't concerned about the safety of minors, you were concerned about getting clout. You guys should have learned your lesson from the Peaches drama, the Spoctor drama, the Dream and John Swan drama, the Pyrocynical drama, and more. But you people keep making the same mistake of jumping on a bandwagon too fast over and over again.
Bandwagoning can be pretty bad, yeah, but sometimes there's wisdom in the crowds. If you want to go against the crowd, however, you better make sure all of your ducks are in a row, or it will end very badly for you once the truth comes to light, and you then realize you were standing on the wrong side of history.
I do believe Synni did bad things. She needed to be called out for them, but she did not groom anyone, and she's not a pedo. If you guys seriously believe that Synni sent a minor then you would also be at fault for linking the doc with a quote-unquote on yourself. If you did not age restrict your video, then so many minors had access to the quote-unquote porn.
This is such a bizarre argument from anyone who spent any amount of time in school, because those two scenarios have very different motivations behind them. One is an indecent action meant to desensitize a victim, while the other is educational by nature and is meant to protect you. That's like calling sex education classes EPI because schools are teaching teenagers how a vagina functions.
Some of you may say that what she did was wrong enough for you to never watch her again. If that is how you feel, then that's okay. But don't make up stuff like, she sent nudes to a minor, she's a pedo, or she groomed someone, because none of that is true. I've checked multiple different definitions for grooming. What Synni did doesn't fit any of them.
Oh my god, that's the freaking screenshot that Synni used in her response video. How do you honestly say that nothing that Synnibear did fits any definitions of grooming? This is abominable.
Sure, what she did is what a lot of groomers do when they start grooming, but they tend to escalate things, and she didn't escalate things for 6 months.
So she exhibited behaviors befitting of a groomer, but you're going to argue that it's not right to call her a freaking groomer. Jar, if the perpetrator is determined enough, grooming can take literal years, if that's the goal of the groomer. But Cindy didn't even need years. She was actually escalating the situation with Eno over the course of those 6 months. First, it started with Cindy trying to tease Eno over her age, talking about how she has porn to share, but she can't send that porn to Eno. Clearly taking in delight that she's talking to a minor about her sexual fantasies. Over time, she would drip feed this type of pornographic material to Eno, with it getting more and more severe as her conversations continued. Also, fun fact, Cindy put the onus on Eno to tell her if she's going too far. As if Eno, the teen going through puberty, would know what kind of boundaries are acceptable or not. Already you can see the situation is escalating, but it gets even worse.
Sure, what she did is what a lot of groomers do when they start grooming, but they tend to escalate things, and she didn't escalate things for 6 months. This kept on escalating until
I'm sorry, Jar. What was that about Synnibear not escalating things over 6 months again? Looks like I caught you napping. I may be younger than you, but you can call me Uncle. I wouldn't mind. Let's continue. As Jar himself pointed out, it escalated to the point where Cindy was sending this minor hardcore porn, which included and is not limited to the rape comic. And fun fact, the icing on the cake? Synnibear actually had Eno reading that rape comic out in VC, meaning she is directly getting Eno to engage in her fetish. How the fuck is that not escalating the situation? And with how Eno talks about their parents, you cannot convince me that eventually it would not have led to Eno and Cindy moving in together. Not unlike what was escalating between Synnibear and Bug Spray.
Or, who knows, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I don't actually know what grooming is.
You don't.
I know the ArtCC is more than likely going to try to use this video against me. They are going to paint me as someone who is okay with degenerate stuff being shown to kids, or that I'm defending a groomer. Both things that aren't true, as I've proven in this video. I said what Cindy did wasn't okay, and I show that she isn't a groomer.
Could have fooled me, Jar! You trying to say that what she did is not okay doesn't really absolve you from the fact that you're actively trying to downplay and defend it. And the arguments you try to use to argue that Cindy isn't a groomer are rancid.
What Cindy did was wrong. What she did was irresponsible. However, whatever punishment you think she deserves, I believe she already got it.
It's not about punishment. The bottom line when you're a creator on YouTube is that the trust you're given from your viewers is everything. At least if you care about growth or you want to make a career out of what you're doing. Synnibear having the indecent interactions with minors she's had in the past, in addition to it being a repeat offense on her part, makes it realistically impossible for people to trust her ever again. For that matter, this is also why Eno trying to claim that Synnibear is not a pedophile is completely irrelevant. Indeterminate of how much contact you've ever had with Synnibear in the past, it is your God-given right to choose who you trust in this world. She can forgive Synnibear if she wants, that's perfectly fine if she chooses to do so. But by that transitive property, no one but the individual viewer who saw Synnibear for what she's done with minors can choose whether or not they trust her. And that's not even a punishment. That's just life.
Now, if you are one of the people who made a video on Cinny, and you disagree with things I'm saying in this video, then let's have a debate. It just seems a little strange to me to make a video on someone without reaching out to them. Oh wait, you guys already did that. I, along with Kumo, were the only two who reached out.
So what if you reached out? The information she gave you clearly wasn't worth anything. Plus, as I said much earlier in this video, reaching out isn't really necessary when you have the full logs available to you already. The time for defense has long since passed.
I know a lot of people won't watch this video, so if you are going to disagree with me, please put hashtag pineapple soda in your comment. All one word, by the way. If you don't, then I know you were too scared to have your opinion challenged.
Fun fact, because of this safe word that Just a Robot put in place, a lot of comments from people who actually did watch this far into the video had their comments be lost by YouTube's spam tag. And the ones without the safe word, well, let's just say that Just a Robot spared absolutely no expense to spurg in his comment section over it. As evidenced by Chud Logic looking over the DMs between Synnibear and Just a Robot that Cindy herself leaked to him. Oh yeah, that's something that she did. Probably should have been saved for later, but it was relevant now.
I've made videos on predators before, and I've uploaded more than one video bashing cuties. I've won almost every single drama I've been in, even when I was on the losing side.
Not even your videos. Those were made by DS Station, aka Miss Anthropony. But that's besides the point. How many dramas were you in where you could say that you've won almost every drama you've been in? That's kind of a red flag that just says that you get into controversy a lot.
I'm sure people are gonna say I'm reviving the drama, or that I'm doing this for money or something. But even if that is true, it doesn't debunk anything I'm saying. People will more than likely bring up the Toby drama, but last time I checked, every single video covering my Toby video is gone. Every last one of them.
Well, that's a bit ominous.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little scared of the backlash I'll get from uploading this video. Both my roommate and my girlfriend try to talk me out of uploading it. They think I'm right, but they don't want to see me fight for so long and so hard like I did in the Peaches drama.
You didn't hear it from here first, but you definitely heard that. People he gets to physically see in his real life are telling him not to upload it, and he did not listen to them. What a crying shame.
By the way, Peaches is someone that became a bad person after everything I did for them, so I don't know if Synni will end up the same way or not, but I have to do what I think is right. Who knows, maybe I'm the one in the wrong, but I still feel like I have to do this.
There is such a thing as a lost cause jar, and Synnibear is decidedly a lost cause. I don't like having to sound so pessimistic, but it's objective fact that saving Synnibear from her situation was entirely out of your control. Even the strongest swimmer can't rescue someone in the process of drowning when they're trapped in the middle of a whirlpool. Even if you manage to catch her, there's no way you'll be able to bring yourself back. And now you're both doomed to drown. Even if you think she's being bashed too hard for what she did with Enno. I find that it's arguably more important to assess whether or not she deserves any criticism at all, versus how much criticism does she actually deserve. And Synnibear definitely deserves to be criticized for what she did. There is no good reason to defend her over being a freaking groomer. The most you reasonably should have to do is consider all the evidence available to you and come to a determination with all the facts you have. But throughout this video, it seems as if you only paid attention to one side, completely neglecting the mountains of evidence against them. And the end result, you come off looking biased, compromised, and unreliable. Which is really bad for you with the niche you found yourself in demands you're credible.
A lot of people could have done this video better than me, and hopefully they will, now that I've shown them the ropes. But if I am in the right, the next time something like this happens, can you guys please not say, "Ja, you were right about every other drama, but this time you're wrong," before my video even comes out.
Really digging the silly voice, meant to poke fun at people who are against your position here. Personally, if I want to debate the other side of an argument, I want to make them sound as smart as possible, because even a man of steel has kryptonite. And the stronger the target, the bigger a statement it makes when you topple him over.
That being said, I am not confident that this video will go over well once I upload it. The good news is I don't have to worry about people like Prisonmate Luke coming in and making things worse. But I also can't get help from people like Lio, Peaches, and Doodletones. The last two left YouTube and Lio's reputation is in the dirt, but I do believe they would have been more skeptical about this drama than most people.
Didn't Lio Convoy explicitly recommend to people not to touch the Synnibear situation, calling it radioactive? No, he would not be skeptical.
In many ways, this is like all the big dramas that have ever happened in the commentary community all at once. Just like Spocter, Synni admitted to it. Just like Peaches, she made a bad first response. And just like Pyro, people painted her as a groomer when she wasn't one. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, this drama has now gotten so big that people outside the ArtCC are talking about it. And a lot of non-ArtCC people don't think that she's a groomer.
How does the video showing Chud Logic laughing at Birdie's stupid video at all indicate that he thinks that Synni is innocent of being a groomer? No, Chud was not taking Birdie's video seriously at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he chose to look at the description just to see if there was a GoFundMe, which, yeah, there was one, and he rightfully scolded it for it, since I believe it was actually above the document exposing Synnibear. Beyond that, I think the consensus he had was that it didn't really matter what you called Synnibear's actions, it was still really bad, even if he was hesitant to call it grooming. But over time, not only was he convinced that there was a reasonable argument to be made that it was grooming, but he personally believes that Synnibear is indeed a groomer. So Jar just did a horrible job actually reading Chud's reaction to what happened with the video.
Who knows, maybe I'm the one in the wrong. But after seeing what happened in the Spocter, the Peaches, and the Pyro dramas, I just think we should be at least a little bit more skeptical. Please, do not take my word for this. Do your own research and look into these documents a little bit more carefully. And once again, I want to make this clear. Synni is being irresponsible, but in my book, she's not a groomer.
I can't with this guy. Jar's ego is insane for how confidently wrong he is throughout this entire freaking video. Even if he was right that no one truly took the time to read the docs, which is still asinine that he thinks he can bluff his way through this controversy, did he just not expect people to actually read the docs after he said that they should? It's just mind-boggling to me that he thought he could get away with that. And a lot funnier with how he actually went on to delete the video after it was up for about 2 days. What a muppet. I'm sorry, I wanted to cover the call in this video as well, but I can't. Not right now. I'll save that for its own video. Still, I have to admit, I regret absolutely nothing about this decision. This has been a hoot and a half, and I look forward to going further down the rabbit hole over this Just a Robot controversy. It's just so fascinating. But until next time, this has been Phantom C, and thank you for watching.